Daf Yomi, Tractate Shevuos, page 12. A, top of the page. Yud Beis Aleph, top of the page, with the words Shani Ketores Delo Bar Ra'ia Hi. No proof can be drawn from here, as incense is different, as it is not an entity that can be left to graze. The option that exists for animals to leave them to graze until they develop a blemish and then redeem them obviously cannot apply to incense. Therefore, it is reasonable that with regard to incense, since there is no other way to rectify it, all will conclude that the court makes a stipulation. Ela Rabbanan Nipalom Dil Mashani Pal Vidamya Yikoin. Rather say, it is the opinion of the sages who ruled in the Braita cited above, with regard to the red heifer, that it may be redeemed if a choicer one is found. The Gemara rejects this claim. Perhaps the case of a red heifer is different, since it is of a great monetary value. To avoid a considerable loss, the court makes a stipulation despite it being an uncommon case. Rather say, it is the opinion of the sages that is introduced with the phrase, they said to him in the Mishnah on 2b. Gemara asks, from where do you know that the Tana referred to as the rabbis is Rabbi Yehuda, and that this is what he is saying to Rabbi Shimon? Granted, according to my opinion, that I say the court tacitly stipulates concerning offerings that their consecration is contingent upon their eventual use. It is due to this reason that they can be sacrificed on an occasion different from the one they were initially intended for. But according to your opinion, that you say that the court does not make such stipulations, why can they be sacrificed on an occasion different from the one they were initially intended for? But perhaps the Tana referred to as the rabbis is Rabbi Meir. And this is what he is saying to Rabbi Shimon. Granted, according to my opinion, that I say that the atonement effected by the goats of the additional offerings of all three occasions, meaning those of the new moons, festivals, and Yom Kippur, is the same. It is due to this reason that they can be sacrificed on an occasion different from the one they were initially intended for. But according to your opinion, that they affect atonement for different cases of sin, why can they be sacrificed on an occasion different from the one they were initially intended for, since it cannot be demonstrated that the rabbi's opinion is based on the assumption that the court makes stipulations with regard to communal offerings. No proof can be drawn from the Mishnah. Ela Rabbi Yochanan Gemara Gemirle Ledivrei Rabbi Shimon Ein Nifdi Ledivrei Chachamim Nifdi. Rather, the opinion of the rabbis cited by Rabbi Yochanan is not necessarily recorded elsewhere, but Rabbi Yochanan learned it through a tradition that lambs consecrated for the daily offerings that were not needed by the public, according to the statement of Rabbi Shimon, cannot be redeemed if they are unblemished, while, according to the statement of the rabbis, they may be redeemed even if they are unblemished. Ula Rabbi Shimon de Lesley, Lev Bezdin, Masna Lehen, Maya Lahu. Rabbi Yitzchak, Rabbi Yochanan, Mekaitzin Bahem et HaMizbeach. The Gemara asks, and according to the opinion of Rabbi Shimon, who does not hold that the court tacitly stipulates concerning those lambs that were consecrated for the daily offerings that remain unused at the end of the fiscal year, what is done with them? Rabbi Yitzchak says, that Rabbi Yochanan says, one supplements the offerings brought on the altar with them. Whenever there were no obligatory offerings to be brought upon the altar, supplementary offerings will be offered upon it in order that it should not remain idle. Amar Rabbi Shmuel bar Rabbi Yitzchak, u'moed Rabbi Shimon b'sigirei chatos, she'em mekaitzin b'gufan ela b'debeihen. Rabbi Shmuel bar Rabbi Yitzchak says, and Rabbi Shimon concedes with regard to goats of communal sin offerings that were lost and for which replacements were offered in their stead, that even should they be later found, one does not supplement the offerings of the altar with those animals themselves. Rather, supplementary offerings are purchased with their value, meaning the sin offerings should be left to graze until they develop a blemish, at which point they can be sold and the proceeds used to purchase supplementary offerings. By Torah law, both communal burnt offerings and sin offerings that may no longer be offered for their intended purposes may be offered as supplementary burnt offerings. Nevertheless, Rabbi Shimon draws a distinction between the two cases. Here, where from the outset the animal was intended to be used as a burnt offering, meaning for the daily offering, and now the intention is to use it as a burnt offering, meaning for the supplementary offerings, the animal itself may be used. But there, where from the outset the animal was intended to be used as a sin offering, and now the intention is to use it as a burnt offering, there is a rabbinic decree rendering prohibited the use of the animal itself even after its atonement has already been effected by a replacement sin offering, due to the concern that people will confuse it with a sin offering before its atonement has been effected by a replacement sin offering. Such a sin offering may be brought only for its originally intended purpose. Amar Abaye, Afanana mitanina, par b'sair shel Yom HaKippurim, she'avdu v'hifrish acherim tachteim, v'chein tzirei Rabbeinu Zareh, she'avdu v'hifrish acherim tachteihen kulan yumusu. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Elazar v'Rabbi Shimon אומרים, יראו עד שיסתאבו, ימכרו ויפלו דמיהן לנדבה, שאין חטאת ציבור. Meso. Abaye said, we learn this in a bright as well with regard to the bull and the goat of Yom Kippur that were lost, and one separated and sacrificed others in their stead, and likewise goats that were designed to atone for an act of unwitting public idol worship that were lost, and one separated and sacrificed others in their stead. In such cases, all of the original animals, if they are subsequently found, should be left to die. This is in accordance with the halacha that a sin offering whose owner has already achieved atonement is left to die. This is the statement of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon say they should graze until they become unfit, and then they are sold and their proceeds are allocated for communal gift offerings. They do not need to be left to die because the halacha is that the communal sin offering is not left to die. Okay. Ve'amai, and why? Hold on. Right. Nikravoy Ninugufai oilo. Abai explains that this Braita supports Rav Shmuel Bar Yitzchak's claim, but why do Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon say that the animal should be left to develop a blemish? Let these animals themselves be sacrificed as a supplementary burnt offering. Rather, must one not conclude from the fact that they did not offer the suggestion that there is a rabbinic decree rendering prohibited the use of the animal itself, even after its atonement has already been effected, due to the concern that people will confuse it with a sin offering before its atonement has been effected? Rava said, we learned this halacha in a Mishnah, Yoma 62a, as well. If after the lottery for the 2 Yom Kippur goats, one of them dies, another pair is brought, and a second lottery is performed, one becomes the counterpart of the remaining goat from the first pair, and the second, now superfluous goat, is left to graze until it becomes unfit, and then it is sold, and the proceeds are allocated for communal gift offerings. Rav explains how this Mishnah supports Rav Shmuel Yitzchak's claim. Why should the superfluous goat be left to develop a blemish? Let the animal itself be sacrificed as a supplementary burnt offering. Rather, must one not conclude from the fact that the Mishnah does not offer the suggestion that there is a rabbinic decree rendering prohibited the use of the animal itself, even after its atonement has already been effected, due to the concern that people will confuse it with a sin offering before its atonement has been effected? Ravina af anan nami tanina asham shemei subalav oshinis kaparu balav ire ad sheyistahev bimachra yiplu damav linedava. Rabbi Eliezer Omer Yamus, Rabbi Yehoshua Omer Yavi v'damav oila. Ravina said, we learned this halacha in a Mishnah. It's more 20b as well. A guilt offering whose owner died and was lost, and before it was subsequently found, its owner achieved atonement through a replacement guilt offering. One should graze until it becomes fit, and then it is sold, and the proceeds are allocated for communal gift offerings. Rabbi Eliezer says it should be left to die. Rabbi Yehoshua says the owner of the guilt offering should bring a burnt offering with the proceeds of its sale. Ravina explains how this Mishnah supports Rav Shmuel Yitzchak's claim. But why should it be left to develop a blemish? Let this animal itself be sacrificed as a supplementary burnt offering. Rather, must one not conclude from the fact that the Mishnah does not offer the suggestion that there is a rabbinic decree rendering prohibited the use of the animal itself, even after its atonement has already been effected, due to the concern that people will confuse it with a sin offering before its atonement has been effected? The Gemara affirms, conclude from it, that there is such a rabbinic decree. Tanya Namiyachi, we also learn a brisa in this way. Mahain Mivian Minat Mutaros. You also learn the right of what type of offerings would they bring from the surplus lambs that were consecrated for the daily offerings?